Oil workers in France are on strike over controversial labour reforms. This is what happened just moments ago at the port of Le Havre in the northeast. Well, workers there are blocking a bridge. Unions want the government to reverse its reforms, which are supposed to make it easier for firms to hire and fire people. The government says it's been forced to dip into strategic oil reserves because protesters have blockaded refineries. And earlier, French nuclear workers said they too were preparing to join the strike. Well, for more on this, let's speak to Peter Humi, who's in Paris. Good morning, Peter. So these reforms have now been passed. How firm is the government on sticking by their plans?
Well, they appear, certainly what they're saying in public, to be extremely committed to seeing through these reforms. We heard those words indeed from Manuel Valls, the Prime Minister, yesterday. He was speaking in the Assemblée, the lower house of Parliament. And we've heard that before from François Hollande when he appeared on a radio chat show about 4 or 5 days ago. So outwardly, at least, the government seems determined to see through these reforms, which are aimed to eventually lower unemployment by making the practice of hiring and firing workers, employees, a little bit less bureaucratic.
Absolutely, and it's coming at a bit of a tricky time for the French government with a huge football tournament just around the corner. I'm supposing these workers think that they can have some effect on the government by putting the pressure on now. Will the tournament be affected?
Well, at this point, the authorities believe it will not. However, if the striking union members do keep up their actions, they start affecting power supply, electricity, this sort of thing, which they're threatening, then it would be hard to see how the football tournament might not be affected. There's 24 teams involved. It's a large logistical and, by the way, security operation. And this kind of action, it might include airplanes, flights in and out of France as well. If the situation deteriorates, the pilots or at least ground staff are threatening to strike as of June the 3rd. So there is potential for some disruption. Absolutely.
Well, it strikes me looking at it, Peter, that tournament can't help but be affected if these strikes continue. So the only way to stop that is compromise. Has there been any talk of that by either side at the moment?
Not really, at least not out in public. I mean, we hear from some of the more moderate unions. I was listening to an interview just 20 minutes ago on French radio, a news show, and they seem to be aware that some sort of compromise is needed. But the union that is most actively leading the strikes and the various other protests is the CGT, which is a fairly long-established and fairly left-wing and radical union over the years of its history, and in fact, we're seeing members now on video. They're the ones that are leading this current action, and they have a fairly hardline reputation. And as I said earlier, the government also doesn't seem to be in much of a mood for compromise at this point, at least outwardly.
Absolutely. Well, interesting times ahead. Peter, thanks for now from Paris.